From Square 2, this is What's Wrong with Revenue. I'm Mike Lieberman, CEO at Square 2, and along with my longtime friend and business partner, Eric Kalis, this show answers the question many CEOs, CMOs, CROs, and business owners are asking, what's wrong with revenue? New shows drop every Thursday morning. You can find the video version of the show on YouTube at the Square 2 Marketing channel, on our website at the What's Wrong with Revenue page located in the footer, or on our free streaming service Square 2 Plus, both located at square2marketing.com. You can subscribe to the show or subscribe to Square 2 Plus, and we'll email you new show content as soon as it's published. You can also submit questions to the show on the What's Wrong with Revenue page of our website. Eric and I answer questions every single episode. You can also find the podcast version of the show on all your favorite podcast platforms. Enjoy the show. Hey everybody, welcome to Season 2, Episode 20 of What's Wrong with Revenue. I'm Mike Lieberman, and I have a special guest here with me today, Jess Lipson, the Director of People and Culture at Square 2, because today's episode is about you want to hire your first senior marketing person. So who better to have on the show than someone who spends a chunk of her day trying to hire people. Jess, say hi.
Hi.
Awesome, Jess. Thanks. So before we get into it, let me just take care of my housekeeping stuff. If you guys remember, you can catch the show on Square 2 Marketing's YouTube channel. Go over there. All of episode 1, season 1 and season 2, all of the episodes are on the Square 2 Marketing channel. You can like us, you can subscribe to the show there, and you can leave us comments. We really appreciate all the comments, all the likes, and all the subscribers. You can also pick up the show on Square 2's free streaming service, Square 2 Plus, located at square2marketing.com/Square2PLUS. If you go to our website, which is recently redesigned, wink, wink, you'll see at the top, there's a Square 2 Plus button. You can find it. And there's also a Square 2 Plus link at the bottom in the footer as well. If you want to go to the page, the show page, we actually still have a show page available. I haven't talked about it in a couple of weeks, but I realized it's on the new site. It's under the podcast link. So again, at the top, there's a podcast link, click it. And at the bottom in the footer, there's a podcast link, and I'll take you right to the page dedicated to What's Wrong with Revenue. There you can leave us questions and you can subscribe to the show directly. And we have a couple of our latest episodes right there for you to take a look at. And if you're interested in the show, that's how you get them delivered right to your inbox. And last but not least, if you're in audio content and podcasts, the show is converted into a podcast for all your favorite podcast and audio content platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, Apple. Check it out, like us, download it, subscribe to it, and you can take the show with you wherever you want. So episode 20, today we're going to talk about hiring your first senior marketing person. And if this is your first senior marketing hire, then it can be an exciting time for your company. You're obviously ready to double down and invest in marketing. You want to bring someone in with some expertise, and it's a very important area. It probably makes sense to a lot of you, but not all marketing people are created equally, as you might find out if this is your first foray in this area. Some are solid with tactics. Others are more comfortable with strategy. And today there are even marketing people whose main focus is technology. And really, I think one of the main things we're going to talk to Jess about today is you actually need someone who's probably good at all these things. But before you pull the trigger, make sure you know exactly what you're looking for, exactly what you want them to do. For example, if you're running something like RGS, our revenue generation system, then you don't want them to come in and blow everything up. You want them to come in and slide into the resource part of the system so that they can help you execute some of the marketing tactics and campaigns you may be talking to your RGS coach about. And again, since this is a big milestone for your company, you really want this to go smoothly. What we're going to cover in the show today is what to look for in your first hire, how to set expectations for these people so that they come in and are successful, what you should be planning on paying them. Jess is going to help us with some understanding of what it costs to hire a person like this, what tools they might be asking for. Sorry, Baxter likes to participate from time to time. And most importantly, how do you talk to them about what you're currently doing from a marketing and sales perspective so that when they come in, they are all aligned and ready to help you hit your goals? So, Jess, I really like to start the show off, especially when I have a guest, with asking them to just comment on the environment around hiring marketing people today. obviously you're spending a lot of your time for us looking for marketing people. So what are you finding out there in the hiring ecosystem? And then we'll dig into some of our specifics.
Right now, the hiring ecosystem is extraordinarily full. I am getting more resumes and more people who are interested in marketing now than ever. And typically, this isn't usually the season for it. You usually see a downslope in people who want to leave their job, or people who are looking around the beginning of summertime, because that's when people take vacations and they take time off. But right now, I think the state of the world and all the layoffs that have happened recently, the budgeting cuts, the first thing to go is marketing. So a lot of people right now are available and looking for both contract and full-time.
Mm-hmm. That's good to hear if you're hiring, right?
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't that put some downward pressure on the salaries and stuff also?
It does, and it also creates an interesting situation where you have to be careful because everyone thinks that they can do marketing. So you are going to get 100 resumes where maybe only 5 of them are relevant. So it takes more time and effort to go through all of them and to really dial down into what you're looking for. And but more people, if you are out there being a proactive recruiter, meaning you're on LinkedIn and you're searching for people, you'll be surprised because more people right now are open to making a move than I think they were before, because they're nervous based on the status of the world in marketing and what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. So, if one of our listeners, watchers, if they are looking to make their first hire, what do you think they should be looking for? Right. So like, just so you understand the kind of context here, maybe the CEO has been kind of leading marketing, or maybe they have like someone who's helping out with marketing, but they're also doing other things in the company too. And they've decided that they want to bring in someone to focus on marketing, their full time, and their full attention will be dedicated to marketing. What do you think they should be looking for in this first hire?
Good question. Marketing is so broad. So you have to make sure that you're dialing in on exactly what your needs are. Do you want someone who's a jack of all trades, or do you want someone who is particularly skilled in HubSpot marketing, like we are, or someone who's particularly skilled in paid media, social media, building email campaigns? So making sure that your job description is on point, and then you can pull keywords specific from that and make sure that that person has that distinct capabilities that you need, rather than being just a little bit good in, a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Do you feel like it would be better for them to have a specialty or be more of a generalist?
So I think people that are more of a generalist can cover a lot, but that doesn't mean that they're an expert in anything that they do. So I think the other idea here is to realize whether or not this person will be a one-man show, if they're at a small agency like us and they are running everything, or if they're going to be part of a team, making sure that they can work as a solo artist, so to speak. And if they're a jack of all trades, making sure that all of those trades are relevant enough for the needs that your agency has.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So if you do have an agency that's helping you in some specific areas, I don't think you necessarily need, and I probably would recommend you don't look to double down on that skill set, right? So like, if you're working with an agency like Square 2 and we're helping you with your inbound marketing campaigns, then maybe you want your first hire to be a good writer.
Yeah, so writing is a big part of it.
Right. So they can write some of the content, and while we help with kind of campaign design and campaign execution, they're kind of leaning into the content, right? If on the other hand, you're looking for someone who's more of a generalist, then you may need to backfill or supplement their skill sets with some more specific expertise. So again, if you want someone to kind of oversee everything that's going on, then you're going to need someone that's good at an agency or some other people who are good at paid and writing and designing the campaigns and then keeping them going on your technology platform. So to Jess's first point and our first point when we kick the show off, you really should have a understanding of what you want this person to do and how they're going to fit into your current team.
Yeah, I think
A lot.
oh, sorry, Mike.
No, go ahead, Jess. Go ahead.
I think another good point to, mention is their background. Are they coming from an agency background and they're able to work on multiple things at one time? Or are they coming from a client side background and they just can focus on one thing at one time is a really important piece of the puzzle.
I think that's a good point. Also, if you are planning on working with an agency, I think it would be good to have someone that has some experience working with an agency, because we generally find that when clients have not worked with an agency before, it sometimes takes them a little while to get their feet under them. And we do a good job onboarding them and training them and getting them comfortable with how the work is going to flow and what the communication looks like. But if you do have an intent to work with an agency, or you're currently working with an agency, having somebody who has some experience in that will just make that, I think, a little bit easier.
For sure.
There are so many areas of expertise in marketing today. I think it's probably harder than ever to find someone who's good at all those things, as opposed to maybe in the past. We talk a lot about how you really have to do so many things at the same time in order to get the results you're looking for. I think that probably supports the configuration where you have, someone that knows a little bit about everything, and then you have experts that are kind of supporting them in the execution area. And that could be an agency like us that is experts that we bring to our clients, or you could have some part-time people in each of those other roles that are working with your new generalist to get your execution done. Those are two good ways to configure this.
Without a doubt.
Okay. So Jess, you do this a lot for us when we hire people, but how do you recommend someone think about setting expectations up front before you hire somebody?
Setting expectations up front is going to be key. I think the first taste of expectations that they get is the job description. So making sure that that is really explaining who you are as an agency, what your culture is like and what this job will entail. And, I always like having in there some sort of ad hoc mention, because not everyone's going to adhere to everything that is on that list, but setting the expectations of what the most important thing is as your first bullet point and moving on down. The second part of that is the interview process. So whether you have the hiring manager involved, whether the recruiter or the HR manager is the first person, they are building that relationship. So being very transparent about what this opportunity looks like, what the team looks like, what the expectations of the company are, and how to succeed in this role. And then making sure that the interview process is seamless. And again, very transparent. So they know what they're getting into. There's no guessing game involved. But again, starting from that first point is the job description.
Yeah, I have a couple comments around this. Again, like we at Square 2, we were continuously looking for people, whether we have openings or not. So Jess and I and a couple other people talk about this hiring process pretty frequently. When it comes to expectations, I think the big thing is if you don't set the expectations realistically, you're going to have an issue pretty quickly when someone starts. So, I think a lot of people who are looking to hire might not be fully honest with candidates about everything that's going on. I think that's a mistake. The more, even if there's, challenges in the business or challenges in the role or challenges with the team or challenges with their potential boss, I think your first move should be to be honest with these candidates about what they're getting into. You don't want to spend time recruiting somebody, getting their offer together, hiring them, onboarding them, and then in a month to be like, this is not what I expected, I'm leaving. That would be, in my opinion, and I've shared this with Jess, the worst case scenario, because you spent all that time and energy picking somebody and getting them, you literally have to start all over again. So it would be better to be completely transparent with someone. So when they come in, they're like, well, this is what they told me, and this is what I was expecting, and I'm down for the challenge, or I wouldn't have taken the job, right?
Yeah. The other thing to note, Mike, is I will tell you that not everyone reads that job description. They see marketing, they think it's fun, they hit send resume, And if for whatever reason they get their foot in the door, you need to make sure that you and your hiring managers, meaning the recruiter and the hiring managers, are all on the same page and giving a very cohesive message across the board so that there is no confusion.
Yeah, that's really good advice. The other point I wanted to make, and this was a lot more relevant, and I remember we talked about this maybe like a year and a half or so ago when the market was very competitive.
Mhm.
We talked about creating an experience for these candidates at Square Two, so they had such a good experience they wanted to work here, right? And I actually think we do a really good job at
Yeah,
that.
we do.
And I even said to you at the time, your role should be kind of like their concierge through
Mhm.
our process. And I think you really took that to light. We get, I usually come in at the end of the process and talk to these people, and they all have wonderful things to say about you and even Kristen and the experience that we've created for them. I mentioned Kristen because of who we're looking for to hire lately, but I think that was really important to people, the experience they were having. And again, when they had 3 job offers, the experience they had sometimes was the difference
Yeah,
between where they went and where they didn't go. And I also think the experience sometimes can help you when it comes to compensation, because if they
without a
want
doubt.
to work for you, they might be willing to work for a little bit less than if they're not sure, or they didn't have a great experience. Like, well, I'm interested in that job, but only if they pay me up here.
Yep.
Whereas I think in a lot of circumstances, people are so impressed by us that their requirements are a little more reasonable, right? I'm not suggesting we're trying to get people at a discount, but
Yes.
they're trying to represent themselves. And if they want to work someplace, they might be willing to take a little less for an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, I think the special thing about Square Two is that we're so boutique, and so it comes down to almost hospitality. You're hospitable to these people, and you bring them into an immediate culture of caring and embracing what they want and their needs. That when we are a boutique hotel and we're put up against a large hotel, price or no price, they go with a place where they feel more human and
Right.
more engaged with the whole process.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, obviously, if you watch the show or listen to the show, I talk about experience for prospects all the time. Marketing has to create an amazing experience, sales has to create an amazing experience. But here we are talking about recruiting people and hiring people, and it's really the same guidance, which is actually kind of interesting. I often feel like the hiring process is the same process as marketing, right? You have to get your name out there, and you have to put
Yeah.
your ad out there, which is just like your job description and your open position, and you have to sift through these candidates. It's like prospects in the
Yep.
sales process, and you're trying to secure one, just like you're trying to secure new sales opportunities. So there's a lot of similarities. I'm curious, like, do you think you picked up anything just from being at a marketing agency that you've used in our hiring process?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think I adhere more to almost marketing in my recruiting than I do to a typical recruiter at any other place, in that I use, I don't want to call them gimmicks, but certain things to get people on the hook.
Yeah.
For me, Square Two is a very easy sale, but I am a weird salesperson, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we write a remarkable job description, right? We try to put out a remarkable ad. We try to give them a great experience. Like, it's really not much different than the way we go about getting our own clients.
Very similar.
Yeah. All right, let's shift gears a bit. So we
Yeah.
talked in the beginning of the show about compensation and kind of where it is today, but what do you think someone should be looking at paying their first kind of full-time marketing generalist? Let's just kind of like stick with our theme here.
So I think that's a very loaded question. Off the top of my head, based on what I've seen as a remote agency and as a smaller remote agency, again, and this has no real quantitative backing, just based on what I've seen, I would say probably anywhere between 85K to 100K, based on their experience and what they're actually going to get done for you. And I say that in a couple of ways because there are marketing people out there that are just doers. They're going to
Yeah.
come in and you have your ideas and they're going to do it for you. And then there's people that are going to come in and they're going to drive the strategy as well as do. And I think, that's the difference between, someone coming in with 3 to 5 years experience versus 7 to 10 years experience. And, again, being a solo artist versus coming in, from a team is going to be a big component of that as well. But I think that's a good range to look at.
So what if you were looking at the lower, what would that lower range be? So you got 85 to 100 at the upper end. What would the lower range be, do you think?
I think if you would find someone around like 75 to 80, you're looking at someone who can probably write blog posts for you, someone who's really good at Canva and social media, somebody who can do an email campaign, but they're not the ones coming up with the ideas necessarily. They're the ones saying, well, okay, I hear your idea. What if I did it this way? They're a creative thinker. They're not necessarily out of the box and strategic yet, but they're good at doing what they do. They can do keyword for SEO. They are really great at, knowing what is important on Meta with Instagram and LinkedIn, and they can build a beautiful presence for you in that regard. But again, they're not necessarily the thinker yet.
Yeah. So that's a good point. So back to like knowing what you're looking for, which we started the show with, if you want someone to tell you what to do,
right,
you're going to have to pay a little more for them. They're going to need enough experiences for them to come in, assess your company, assess your industry, assess your positioning. Potentially you might want them to direct the agency on what you want your agency to do, or direct your contract resources on what you want them to do. I think for someone like that, you're talking about, I think Jess is right, probably in the $100,000 range. Like, to me, that's more of a director level or even a VP of marketing level, someone that's going to take the reins and really drive your marketing and help you hit whatever goals you have set out for them from a marketing perspective. If you're looking for someone more to kind of, I'll say this, like project manage your marketing, but wrangle the cats and just make sure stuff's getting done, and maybe fill in a task or two here or there, and do what you're telling them to do. If you're the CEO and you want to direct marketing, that's fine. Or you have an agency you trust that's creating the strategy and doing the direction, and you want someone just to kind of work with them to make sure they have what they need and that things are on track, and you're managing the budget with them, you're managing your overall spend. Like, that might be somebody in the 75 to 95 range, who's more of a marketing manager than a director or a VP level. And then I think there is a lower range if you want just someone that's going to kind of like, sweep up. I don't mean this any disrespectfully, but all those things that no one really wants to do. There's value in having someone do that too. Like, oh, get me this file, or pull me this report, or go in a HubSpot and tweak this one thing. Like, there's room for that work too. So I'm not diminishing it in any way. That's going to be a less expensive resource. That could be like someone out of college who's just going to learn marketing, and by working with the agency or by working with your contractors and working with you, they will get better over time. But your expectations of them should be a lot lower,
and that's how they're going to learn.
Your comp would be lower too. What?
Yeah, and that's how they're going to learn. I mean, right. I think that's one of the things to be said about what we do. Having like interns come in, like, we get it. It looks great on your resume, but you actually learn how to work in an agency, and marketing is so popular that you get to see what that actually entails. So all that little menial work, quote unquote, gets them to where they need to be.
Right. Yeah, good point. Okay. So just moving right along here. So I think that was pretty helpful. If someone's looking to hire someone, they now know what to consider. What tools do you think this marketing person might need? Because I feel like it's not just the salary and the compensation for the person you're hiring. If you're hiring the right person, they're going to come in and be like, okay, I'm ready to go. I need this, I need that, I need this, I need that. So like, in your experience, what tools should someone be prepared to arm their new marketing person with so that they can get their job done?
I mean, if we're talking about tools in the sense of like software, There's definitely going to have to be, you know, a project management system in place, making sure that they are able to stay on task in terms of traffic and work and what is getting done. You know, in terms of being creative, I think you need something like Canva. If you don't have Adobe Suite, that which would be even better. Most people now are using things like Adobe XD versus Photoshop. But, you know, people who are out there on their own doing social media, Canva is a big one and very easy to use. If you're a HubSpot agency, getting that person, you know, HubSpot and getting them certified in whatever, you know, CMS that you're using so that they are able to automate all the marketing that they're doing for your agency. I mean, off the top of my head, those are probably the three biggest.
Yeah.
In tools of, you know, in terms that there's a lot of soft skills there too, that they're going to need a support system. You know, if you're a full service agency, making sure they have the capabilities and the ability to go to the team, the editors, the copywriters, the designers, if needed, you know, and making sure that they have that full backing support.
Yeah, those are all good, suggestions. I think, you know, generally they should be very fluent in whatever revenue platform you're currently either working in or considering working on. You know, Jess mentioned HubSpot. We're a big HubSpot agency. You know, if you're on HubSpot, then you should be looking for someone with some HubSpot skills. I don't know that they necessarily need to be like a technical HubSpot guru, but they should be very comfortable in the marketing hub. They should be, you know, if your sales team is using the CRM, they should be very comfortable in the CRM and being able to do things to help sales in the CRM. If your website is on HubSpot, they should be comfortable enough with the CMS to go in and make changes to web pages and forms and landing pages and CTAs. You know, they should be fluid in HubSpot. And if you're using another system, if you're using Salesforce, they should be fluid in Salesforce. Again, like, I don't know that they need to be a Salesforce admin or a HubSpot admin. There are plenty of ways to scratch that itch that I don't know that your marketing person needs to be that technically astute out of the gate. But I do think they need to know their way around enough, and they need to be able to do basic things in these platforms. No matter what platform you're using, they should be comfortable enough with it to be helpful, right? And they should be very comfortable getting up to speed, and maybe they need to be better at it than they currently are. And also, if you're going to move, you need to be thoughtful about that too. So if you're on something and you're moving to something else, you know, I would not worry about the migration piece of it, because again, you can hire an agency like us, or you can get someone to help you with the migration. But after that's over, you're going to want your marketing person to be really good at the platform that you're on.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, if they're not comfortable with any of these platforms, my opinion would be they're not going to be long-term, they're not going to be viable long-term. Eventually, everybody's going to need one of these platforms. If you're not running one now, if you're piecing it together with point solutions, eventually you're going to decide you need something like HubSpot, cross-platform, you know, revenue generation toolkit. You know, your marketing person should be very comfortable in working in that toolkit.
For sure.
And then I can't, you know, I would be remiss if I didn't mention like ChatGPT. Everybody's talking about it. Again, I don't think you need someone who is, you know, writing code for it or integrating it, you know, through APIs. But I do think it would be very helpful for you to have someone who is at least played around with it, knows how to use it for certain marketing related tasks, because, you know, it's quickly becoming a viable tool in the marketing toolkit. If they don't know how to use it, yeah, they could figure it out. But if they do know how to use it, they're probably further along and already doing some pretty cool things with it. And that is going to help your marketing run more efficiently and get results faster. So probably something you should at least talk about in the interview process.
That's a good point.
Okay, so one more thing, Jess, before I wrap up, I want to talk a little bit about how you talk to potential candidates and how you help them understand how they're going to fit into an existing system. Because I've seen this happen a couple of times over the years. we're working with a client, we've kind of got them rolling. We have a system that we run for all our clients, the revenue generation system. And new people are hired in and they're like, okay, there's a new sheriff in town. I'm going to blow this whole thing up and start all over again. And that has never been productive in our case. And I don't think it's ever been productive on the client side either. How do you talk to a new candidate about helping them understand that they're going to fit in to something that's already working well, and how they need to kind of acclimate themselves to what's working going forward?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So for Square 2, it's very easy because, well, let me say this, it's a team effort. So it's not just me from the get-go talking to them about, what this job entails. Again, as I mentioned, it's the entire interview team sharing the same story, which is going to make them more comfortable than anything. But coming in, my first kind of attack, so to speak, is to get a sense of what they're looking for, what they're coming from, why they're looking to make a move, and make sure that that's an appropriate fit. And then overall look at them from a cultural perspective. But if they are a process-driven person, they will fit right in with the likes of who we are at Square 2. So I really like to dig in and explain to them how process-driven we are. I like to go through our onboarding process with them. Like you mentioned, talk about the tools that we use to see if they're comfortable using them and get a sense of how they work within a team. And then what we'll do, we do have a pretty rigorous and pretty process-driven onboarding, but I set the expectation, like we mentioned earlier in the show, and I let people know that our expectation for success does not mean that you know everything in the first week. We have a 30, 60, 90 review process. So in that first 90 days, making sure they're comfortable where they are and we are setting them up for success. But my message usually is it takes a good 6 months to really understand at the core of us who Square 2 is, what it means to use HubSpot, what it means to drive our process and work with our clients, and to make sure that they are taking the time to understand that, some people get ahead of themselves and that's their personality, but I do a check-in with them every couple of weeks to make sure that they are feeling okay about their situation. And again, just reiterating, look, you've been here a couple of weeks. You're not going to know everything. And it really, just from my experience, usually within the first 90 days, they're pretty comfortable. And our team is so open and brings everyone into the fold. But still, I think it takes a good 6 months to really understand who we are as a team. And as long as that person knows that from the get-go, they hear it from my mouth, Mike, they hear it from your mouth, the CEO is telling you, relax, we've got you. We'll take you through our process. I think that makes all the difference, just transparent communication about our ideas of success.
Yeah, I thought that's really good advice. I also think that back to our very first point, just to come full circle, you have to set the right expectations with these people, right? If you're running a system, and you should be running a system, whether it's the revenue generation system, RGS, or your own system for marketing and sales, you have to help someone new coming onto the team to understand, look, we're running this system, right? We're not looking for you to come in and blow it up and show us something new. We're committed to this. It's been working. I'm asking you to come in and slide into this system and serve this purpose. I think that's important, right? Yep. I think sometimes new people in new roles feel like they have to make their mark on everything. I don't want to be crude, but they come in, they pee all over everything, trying to state their, territory. And, in a lot of cases, it's really unproductive. You're kind of forcing the company to start all over again in a lot of ways. And not always necessary. Obviously, if you haven't done anything, it's different. Or if it's a big mess, it's different. But it's generally not the scenario that I see. I see there's generally good things going on at companies, and they just need more hands or they need more expertise. And being clear with the people you're bringing in, look, I want you to, serve this purpose. I want you to be in this role. Here's your lane. Yes, guidance and oversight is good, but this is really what I want you to focus on inside the system. I think is probably the best way to prevent someone from coming in and trying to blow up what is already somewhat productive and cause you to, maybe have to start all over again. Make sense?
Yeah, you can typically tell from an interview if somebody is looking to come into a well-oiled machine, which we already are, and slide in and do their, like you said, stay in their lane. And you can tell when someone is going to be a bull in a china shop, so to speak.
Right, right. Also, like I talk to a lot of people when they come to work at Square Two that, we're looking for their ideas and we're looking for their opinions, right? And there's a way to express yourself that is not disruptive or disrespectful to the people that have been doing this work a lot longer than you have when you start a new job. And I think that's something you should be looking for when you're kind of trying to screen for character, human characteristics, right? And personality. How do you navigate a situation like this? We do a lot of behavioral interviewing where we're like, look, here's the situation. How would you handle it? If they're like, well, I ask a lot of questions and I like to, get people's opinions before I express my opinion, that's probably a better way to think about having someone slide into a system as opposed to someone who says, oh yeah, I just tell everybody what I think right out of the gate, like whether I know what I'm talking about or not. Like that's probably, while interesting in some scenarios, probably not the best personality characteristic for the stuff we've been talking about today.
For sure.
Awesome. Jess, you've been great on the show. I really appreciate you having you. I'll remind everybody, if you want to check out the show, go to YouTube, Square Two Marketing has a channel. All of the What's Wrong with Revenue, season 1 and 2 are available on YouTube. You can like us, you can subscribe to it, you can leave us comments. We really like to hear from people who watch the show. If you want to watch the show and subscribe to the show, you can go to both Square Two Plus, square2marketing.com/Square2PLUS, and you can subscribe to all of our audio and video content on our Netflix style streaming service. We have shows for audio and video content for CROs, CEOs, CMOs. We have a HubSpot channel, and we're even featuring our new Pickleball Business Banger show, where we take some pickleball content and some business content, and hopefully you guys will get a chuckle out of it. They're short, fun little shows. We have more coming over the next couple of weeks. So you get that on Square Two Plus and on YouTube, actually. If you want to subscribe to the show directly, there's a link at the top and bottom of our website. Just click on the podcast link. It'll take you to the What's Wrong with Revenue page, and you can subscribe to the show. And you can also leave us questions. I generally answer questions with my guests every couple shows as they build up. If you have a question, put it in there and I'll take care of it for you. And you can also get the show emailed right to your inbox every Thursday afternoon when we drop new episodes. And last but not least, if you're into audio and podcast content, the show is on all your favorite podcast platforms in its audio format. Go check it out on Apple, iTunes, Podcast, Podbean, Stitcher, whatever. And we're thrilled that you are interested in hearing what we have to say. Jess, thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you.
Everybody, have a really great rest of your week, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks.
Bye.